Adoption of technologies among goat farmers in India. I will like to present my content in terms of technology transfer in the following is one, what is the context in which the goat farming is going on, and what is the support system that is existing to address the challenges in the goat farming system across India. Then, after maybe 5 to 6 decades of extension work in livestock, where our farmers stand in terms of knowledge, and particular to goat farming, and what extent the farmers has adopted the recommended practices from various stakeholders. So that will be the second part of my lecture. And as on date, yes, there is a demand for increasing of meat, and also there is a pressure on the grazing resources, natural resources. So these two put together drives the farmers to adapt or a shift from traditional system to a more intensive system of rearing, and the farmers need to move towards high-end technologies. And what are the factors that are driving those technology adoptions? That will be my third part. And fourth part, in general, when a technology is pushed by the extension system or Department of Animal Husbandry or any other stakeholders working in extension, how the farmers tend to adopt technology and what is their nature of their behavior, what is their behavioral characters. So that will be the fourth part. And the fifth part will be, from based on those four parts, what are the leads available for a consultants of our fellow vets who are working in the Department of Animal Husbandry or who are working in the private sector, which are needs to be addressed to the farmers. So that will be the leads for the consultants will be there. That will be the fourth part. Then finally the conclusion will be there. So the sections are arranged into 6 parts, and the last part I will be dealing with the conclusions. So coming to the first part, the context. So we all know there is a climate change phenomena, and that has been well established by scientific communities across the globe. And animal is one of the contributor, particularly livestock is one of the contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions, and 30% of the global methane emission is coming from livestock sectors. Added to that side, added to the contribution to the global gas emissions, the livestock also subjected to the climatic stress. And there are currently 2 predominant forecasts are available how the future climate is likely to be. One is referred as RCP 4.5 and another is referred as RCP 8.5. That you can see well clearly in the bottom of the graph, where there are 2 scenarios. So RCP 4.5 says in 2100, when the temperature rises by 2 degrees Celsius, so how many stressful days animal will have in a year? That is the graph that is depicting. For example, when you look into the graph in 2021 to 2050, you can see the poultry under RCP 8.5, how many stressful days it is likely to have. So it is depicted in the picture. So during 2021-50, that is which is light green color, so the bird is likely to be in almost 60 stressful days, consecutive 60 stressful days. So when you look into the cattle also, the animal is likely to be like in the case of, like if you check the green color, which is in 2071 to 2000, when the RCP is 8.5, that is 4 degrees Celsius is rising in temperature, then the number of stressful days is likely to be 20 days. But if you look into the goat production, which is the column prior to the last column, where the number of consecutive stressful days for goat is comparatively very meager, less than 20 days. That is within 10 days. Both the scenario, when the temperature rises above 2 degree, also when the temperature rises above 4 degree, also the number of stressful days for the goat is likely to be very meager on comparing to other livestock species. So in this context of climate change, goat is considered as the future livestock, at least in tropical regions. So goat is likely to rule the world in the next century in terms of for both meat as well as milk production on account of climate change. So this is a context in which goat is likely to emerge as a new emerging livestock species. Added to that one, there is also a shift is there. So particularly consumers in the European market are having a tendency to shift towards goat meat also is there. So these two things, the consumption pattern towards goat meat, the choice as a choice of chawan as a meat, and also the climate change phenomena. These these two things put together in the future livestock goat as an ideal species. Please next slide. So in this context, how our system, animal husbandry system, government of India is responding to the goat protection system I have presented in the slide. So if you look into the GDP, gross domestic products, so goat, the livestock sector accounts around 4% of GDP, but as an investment from the government side, we get only 1%. So this is put together all the livestock components. Both the dairy as well as sheep and goat and poultry sector, the government receives 4 rupees but invests 1 rupee only in the livestock sector. So there is a large gap is there which needs to be addressed. When you look into the veterinarians available across the country, there is a 58% shortage of veterinarians and full posts are there. And this again you need to more carefully if you look into that. This data was mostly available. This data was generated based on the FAO's guidelines stating that for every 5,000 livestock unit, 1 veterinarian is needed. So when that 5,000 livestock unit was estimated, that indigenous breeds, particularly cattle, are considered as 1 cattle unit. But when the more than 30 to 40% of the population are in crossbreeds, and they are likely to be more than 1 cattle unit. So taking into account of the increasing the cattle population, particularly crossbreed population, if you look into the shortage of veterinarians, then it is more likely to be more than 58%. So we have a shortage of, we have a less investment, and also we have a shortage of veterinarians. And if you look into the shortage of, look into the support staff also, there is a 80% vacancies also there. So again, public sector vacancy also there is a 58% vacancy is there. So when you look into the allocation of budget, from the budget that is allotted to animal husbandry towards extension, then it is very much, it's only 10%. 90% of the amount budget allotted to the animal husbandry goes for either HR management activities, human resources as the salaries, or for the vaccination programs, or for other managemental programs. So 10% of the budget only is allocated for educating the farmers through extension program. And again, if you look into the how many households are assessing the livestock extension services, information particularly, only 5% of the household across India has access to livestock information. The remaining households, they are dependent upon more on the fellow farmers, peer group farmers. So only 5% of the people have a access to information, authenticated information, maybe a vets or maybe a training center or maybe a veterinary college or farm science center. So all the institutional access only available to the 5% of the households. And if you look into the knowledge of the farmers on goat farming, so they are around 47%. So out of 100, they have a score of 47%. So there is still a 53% gap is there in their knowledge. And as per the one study in 2018, international study funded by World Bank says that there is still more than a 30% production gap is existing. So this is the status. This is the status of goat protection system and its support system across India. So this is the context in which we are operating. One, we got a climate change phenomena where we see a goat as an ideal species, and emerging demand for meat also opening up opportunities for goat protection system. But at the same time, there is a minimal support to the goat protection system the goat production system is particularly a neglected sector within the livestock sector. So that is clearly visible in this slide. So before going into the exactly how many farmers have adopted, what is their knowledge, then what is adoption, these things, we will try to understand some minimal definitions which we might have been familiarized during our work period also, or during our educational days. I try to recall those definitions, so which will be helpful to us when we go for the next slides. So here the definition for adoption, technical definition for adoption is the decision to make full use of an innovation or practice. Yes, this course of action is available. That is, when salt lick is introduced to the farming community, the farmer's ability to use it when its full potential is available, then it is referred as adoption. So a farmer may adopt a technology completely or partially, or sometimes he may not adopt also. So there is a three levels are there. For example, when you recommended a vaccine schedule, we may be recommending 3 vaccines, but farmer may be adopting either 1 or 2. Then he is a partial adopter. When he adopts complete vaccine schedule, then he says a complete adoption. So when he does not adopt all the 3 vaccines, then we say it's a not adopter. So that is referred as adoption. Then what is an adoption process? So adoption process is nothing but it refers to a mental process where an individual first get an awareness about the technology. From that stage to the final stage, whether to use the technology or not, a decision is making. No? So that whole process, that mental process is referred as adoption process. So it is a mental process through which an individual passes from first hearing about an innovation to final adoption. That is, knowing about TMR, that's total menstruation, to take a final decision whether to go for a TMR or not. So that process from knowing to final decision making process is referred as adoption process. Then we got another thing, extent of adoption. So here extent of adoption is refers to, so for a goat farming, we may recommend for the health domain, we may recommend 10 to 12 technologies. But the farmer may not adopt the 12 technologies recommended. So we might have recommended some vaccines, some 5 to 6 vaccines. Then we might have recommended deworming. Then we might have recommended other preventive strategies as a healthcare, the healthcare domain. So 12 technologies may be there. And out of that, how many technology he has adopted? That is recommended by the vets. So if we adopt 6 only, then extent of adoption is 50. So that is referred as extent of adoption. Then we got also an awareness. So awareness here broadly refers to just having that something is existing, a basic understanding or recognition of something. That heard about TMR, but I don't know more detail about it. So that is awareness. But when it comes to the knowledge, it's more a deeper understanding. What is TMR? What are the machineries needs to be there? And what are the composition, silage, and all other things needs to be mixed. So these are the complete understanding is referred as knowledge. So based on these definitions, we will be the base for the upcoming slides. So now coming to the knowledge of farmers in goat farming across India, how the knowledge is there. So this knowledge we collated from the literatures published across India, and we today did a statistical work and consolidate this finding. So here we see the knowledge of southern region to eastern region of India. So what is the out of 100, what is the score can be given to a farmer on an average is 26. That means in southern regions of India, farmer has poor knowledge on goat farming. So whatever the knowledge they have is very minimal. But if you look into the eastern India regions, they have a better knowledge. So knowledge here includes maybe knowledge on health, knowledge on management practices, knowledge on fodder production, knowledge on housing, like how much square feet is needed per animal. So what are the vaccine schedules you need to undertake to rear an animal free from diseases? All this put together we consider as a knowledge that is essential for a goat farming. And that knowledge was evaluated across farmers across India by various researchers, and we find that and consolidating those find that this is the knowledge we have. So average knowledge, the first slide I said it's a 48 across India, but when you go within the regions, there is a wide variation is there. Southern region is the lowest and eastern region has a higher knowledge. And western and central and northern regions are almost similar in their knowledge in terms of goat farming. Now you come to the adoption status. So I request you all to recall. Adoption is, did you adopt or not? That is the adoption status here. So a study from Gujarat published in 2013 by the author I have listed out the below of the slide says that if you look into the deworming across communities from SC, ST, OBC and other and O. So if you look across the community, how the deworming practice is being adopted, you can see like in case of deworming, 96% of the farmers do not adopt deworming practice in Gujarat. So only meager amount of farmers is adopting Gujarat within the scheduled caste community. And if you look into the scheduled tribe also, there is a better adoption of deworming practice on comparing to the scheduled caste. And when you come into the OBC group, within OBC group, you see there is a better adoption of deworming practice. Around 38% of the farmers are adopting deworming practices. And when you come to the other sections also we see only 22% adopting deworming in Gujarat. So if you look into the across communities, across various social strata, from 3 to 40% of the farmers are only adopting deworming. So we can say majority of the farmers still have not adopted deworming. So when you come to the other also vaccination schedule, that is the first part, where you can see a better adoption of vaccine schedule is there across the communities on comparing to the deworming. But still there is a wide gap, around 30% of the farmers still have not adopted the deworming. Like if you look into the overall category in vaccination, around 70% has adopted, still 30% have not adopted the vaccination. So there is a still the vaccination technology has not reached the last mile or the farmers who are rearing goats at the remote parts of the country. Similarly, if you look at the deworming, the scenario is still worse, where majority of the farmers still have not adopted the deworming practice. So this is very specific to Gujarat. So when you go for the next region, Rajasthan, so a different scenario is there. So they have studied in 3 categories of farmers. One small, that is farmers who are owning small herds, then farmers owning medium herds, then large herds. And if you look into the vaccination adoption in Rajasthan, only 8% of the farmer is adopting. In case of small farmers category, only around 8%, around 9% of the farmers are adopting vaccination. So when you come to the medium farmers who are owning a better herd size, so around 22% are adopting vaccination. And when you come to the larger herds, there is a 50% adoption of this there in case of vaccination. And overall, still only 22% of the farmers in Rajasthan adopt vaccination, recommended vaccinations. So when you come to the again isolation of sick goats, so it is one of the practice we emphasize when there is a incidence of disease, we ask the farmers to isolate. But if you look into the isolation practice, isolation of sick goats as a practice among the farmers, majority of the farmers, they have more than 80% of the goat farmers do not do a isolation. So this all shows either in case of vaccination or in case of deworming and in case of isolation of sick goats, still the adoption practices of the farmers is very limited in terms of goat farming, in terms of practices that are promoted by the extension system. So there is a wide gap is existing. So this is a region-wise overall extent of adoption. So again, I wish to recall the definition. The extent of adoption is meaning that if you have emphasized 30 practices for a farmer, out of 30 practices, how many practices our farmers are adopting is referred as extent of adoption. Like if you look here in southern regions, around 50% of the technologies that is promoted by the extension system is being adopted in southern regions. If you have promoted around 30 technologies as a package of practices for goat farmers, in that the farmers are adopting at least 15 practices that is recommended by the veterinarians. So that is a in case of southern regions. And if you look into the eastern regions, so only 1/3 of the practices the farmers are adopting. Only 1/3 of the practices what we recommended the farmers are adopting. That's only 31.48. So again here the adoption, extent of adoption varies across region. And you can see a contrast here. Even though knowledge was minimal in southern region with 26%, but extent of adoption of technology in southern region is comparatively better. And eastern region, which had a higher amount of knowledge on goat farming, has a limited extent of adoption. So there is a contrast is here. So that will be, I will explain why this contrast is there in upcoming slides. So now again, we have divided these things into domains, like in housing, how many practices, recommended practices has been adopted by the farmers. In feeding, how many practices out of recommended practice, how many has been adopted, how many as farmers has adopted. And in breeding, out of promote technologies, how many the farmers have adopted. That's all. So in case of housing, if you look into it, so 70% of the technologies are practices that we are promoting. The system, extension system is promoting, is adopted by the farmers. And the next adopted technology, adopted domain is breeding domain. So here, out of the technology, breeding technologies are practices that we have promoted. 58% practices are being adopted by the farmers. And the least adopted, if you go, is ectoparasitic control. So whatever we recommend, what are the practices we have recommended, out of that, only 24% has been accepted or are being adopted by the farmers. So remaining 76% farmers are not putting into the practice. So there is a within the domain also, the extent of adoption is also varying. The reasons may be, for example, in case of housing, the increasing in temperature, maybe heat stress, or maybe extreme temperature events, extreme climatic events, may be pushing the farmers to go for housing technologies, adoption of promoted housing technologies. Again, when you look into the vaccination, the increasing incidence of diseases also may be the one of the factors, maybe that is driving on account of climate change. The increasing vector-borne diseases may be the reasons that are driving the farmers to adopt whatever the practices that is promoted by the extension system, animal husbandry system. So similarly also kid management. But there is a ectoparasite is very meager, and overall health, if you look into it, the putting together ectoparasite, endoparasite, vaccination, that is the overall health. So when you look into the overall health, but there is only a 30%, 31% level of adoption of technology is there. So a 69% of gap is still existing, what we preach and what the farmers do. So there is a 69% gap is there. And overall adoption, so there is a gap of 68%. So whatever we said, whatever we convey to the farmer through our extension system, only 42% of the practices has been accepted by the farmers. 68% they have not put into practice, maybe due to various reasons, which we need to maybe take into account when we do extension programs. So this is, I try to emphasize health alone here. So this is a repetition of the previous slide. So to give a more emphasis, where we deal with more of clinical cases, where we find more of health challenges. So we can see the vaccination is accepted up to a 48% only, and ectoparasite is only 39%. endoparasite control is only 39%, ectoparasite is only up to 24%, and overall health is only 31% they accept it. So there is a wide gap. This is a slide that is depicting on the health domain. This again we try to do across regions. So when we try to analyze across regions, how the practices across Eastern India, Northern India, Central India, Western and Southern regions of India are adopting these practices. So when coming to the vaccination schedule, the better adoption of vaccination, extent of vaccine adoption is mostly well pronounced in the central regions of India. So when you look into the deworming practices, that is more well accepted and well practiced in southern regions of India and followed by northern regions of India. And when coming to the ectoparasite control, the practice of controlling of ectoparasite as recommended by the veterinarians is predominantly well noticed in northern regions. And if you look into the overall health scenario, southern regions dominates with extent of adoption. So overall health practices, inclusive of ectoparasite control, deworming, vaccination, put together, when you analyze those things, the overall healthcare adoption, extent of adoption is better in southern region, followed by northern regions. So when you come into the feeding practices, so the feeding practices, whatever we recommend, feeding from leguminous fodder to concentrate feeding, supplementation of mineral mixture, all these things put together we put as a feeding practices. So we might have recommended many practices. Out of that, 54% of the practices are being adopted in central regions of India. And overall adoption, if you look into the overall adoption, which is top in the chart, so nearing 50% of the recommended technologies are adopted in southern regions, followed by then we can see is the western regions. So within various domains of goat farming, the extent of adoption of technology also varies. So some of the practices are well accepted in certain regions, some of the practices are not accepted in certain regions. So why these regional variations also exist? This needs to be understood. So this is a one study which is very this was carried out by IVRI in 2018, and this study carried out in Tamil Nadu region, and this study was very specific to the intensified goat farmers. So here in Tamil Nadu we see there is a emerging trend of establishing saddle floor goat units with almost zero grazing system. We are saying with the farmers are making an attempt to experiment with various breeds from Talacheri, Salem Black, Kanni to Boya. So they are making an experimental attempt is also there. There is also an intensive promotion of intensive goat farming in various veterinary university training and research centers of Tanavas as well as animal husbandry department as well as Kristi Vigyan Kendras. So we see a new emergence, new form of new goat farming system, particularly intensified goat farming with slatted floor systems with the flock size ranging from 20 to 100. So when we analyze those farms, how they adapt technologies, and that is depicted here. So whatever we recommend, almost in housing, the farmer here is adapting. That if you recommend a space, the space for goats, that's exactly at a space, the height of the sets, and maybe the run space, and whatever we recommended in feeding and watering space as a part of the housing practices, then the farmers, whatever we recommend out of that, 74% of the technologies are adopted. And in case of similarly, if you look into the other domains also, 67% of the feeding practices, from supplementation of mineral mixture, maybe concentrate feeding, cultivation of fodder, leguminous feeding in inclusion of leguminous fodder in green fodder feeding. So all these, whatever recommended out of which 67 are accepted by the farmers. And similarly also in breeding, from the choice of breeds, from the male-female ratio. So whatever we recommend, so out of that, 65% are accepted by the intensive farmers. And similarly in healthcare and also in general management. So here I wish to say that the farmers who are in intensive goat system and comparing to the traditional goat system, Here they are adopting the technology in a better form. So whatever there is a recommendation from the experts, from the field vets, from the other technocrats, that is well accepted and implemented at the field conditions. So intensive goat farmers, on comparing to the traditional goat farmers, are better adopters of technologies. So that is what the studies carried out by Dr. Gunasheelan at IVR reflect. So again, from the same study, so what are the practices that study took into account? Yeah, the housing, there was 5 technologies that was considered as a recommended technologies and how the farmers has adopted it. So 88% farmers, whatever we have recommended as the space requirement. So 73% of the farmers has adopted. Some 20% of the farmers has partially adopted it. And only 6% of the farmers are deviant from our recommendations. Similarly, orientation of shed. Similarly, use of feeding and watering devices, arrangement in the shed, then adoption of lateral floor housing, then drainage facilities. So whatever recommended from the extension system or fellow other vets working in the fields, so they have taken into and they are these intensified goat farmers who are doing a stall feeding of goats under lateral flow system have almost adopted the technologies. So if you look into the feeding also, they are adopting almost if you look at except feeding of supplements, mineral supplements, all other technologies, 5 technologies have a greater acceptability among the farmers. So breeding also has a except artificial insemination. This may be the reason there is a poor access to artificial insemination service that may be hindering the farmers to assess these things. So when you look into the deworming practice, so 75% of the farmers are adopting similar dipping practice. So similarly, when you look into the vaccination, so 55% of the farmers are adopting the complete schedule, what we have recommended, what the extension system has recommended. So 55% of the farmer is accepting the complete schedule. While 35% of the farmers, if you look into the adjacent cell, 35% farmers are partially accepting it. Only 10% of the farmers are deviating. So when you look into the Gujarat and Rajasthan case, in terms of vaccination and deworming, there is a wide variation is there. So they are comparatively poor adopters of technology, recommended technologies, on comparing to the intensified farmers in Tamil Nadu. This reflects that on comparing to the traditional farmers, the intensified goat farmers are better adopters of technology. And comparing to the other parts of India, southern region is adopting more the recommended technologies. So contrast in knowledge. Southern states have low knowledge, relatively better adoption of technologies. Eastern states have high knowledge, but relatively low adoption of technologies, while Western states has medium knowledge and they relatively medium adoption of technologies there. So why this contrast is there? So some states, the states which are with low knowledge have better adoption of technology, but states with high knowledge have relatively low adoption of technologies. So why these variations are there? So that is where the extension science comes into the picture. So we all know that these technologies are damn sure that they are likely to minimize the mortality rate, enhance the productivity, likely to enhance their income and better returns to the farmers. But even then, there is, even after gaining some knowledge also, the farmers tend to low adopters. Why this reason? We'll get the answers for these questions in upcoming slides. So now again, coming to the scenario where there is a promotion of intensive goat rearing is happening on account of emerging demand for meat, depletion of grazing resources. So there is a promotion of intensive system of goat rearing, and intensive system of goat rearing have a paradigm shift in terms of technologies likely to have. And so these are some of the paradigm shift that we are likely to see when the farmers goes for intensive, from native breeds to non-native breeds. For example, the farmers in Tamil Nadu, they try to rear particularly the goats from Kerala, Talacheri breed, and some other farmers even try animals that are from which has an origin from Rajasthan, like Sirogi, and also the farmers are making an attempt to use Boyer also. So a shift is there from native breeds. When the farmers moves to intensive, there is a complete shift in a germplasm they are likely to handle. So non-native breeds they are doing. And similarly, when it comes to the housing, so from no set or kacha set to a paka set with slatted floor, pen segregation, open yard they are likely to go. Similarly, when coming to the feeding, so initially the traditional systems you look into more, we are dependent upon the grazing resources and minimal supplementation of feed at the farm at the household level. But when you come to the intensive system, where there is improved drinker and feeder arrangement we are likely to give, and we are likely to shift for mass or pellet or TMR feeding or silage, the farmer may likely to shift, and from community fodder or weights, the farmer may shift to cultivation of fodder like hybrid napier, that's a combo napier, multi-kit sorghum, hedge lucerne or lucerne. So the farmers need to go for a fodder crops. Then almost no supplementation with salt lick, other micronutrients, or maybe we may even go for amino acid supplementations in the feed. So there is a paradigm shift in terms of feeding from the traditional, when the farmers shift from traditional to intensive system. Similarly, in the machineries. So in case of machineries, the farmers what they use mostly traditional tools to bring down the leaves from the trees. But when they go for the intensive system, then they are likely to use chop cutters, grinders, mixers, etc. And even some more other modern tools also they are likely to. So when it comes to health, so the farmer in the traditional system more emphasizes more depend upon IVM and modern medicine. But when here it comes to the farmers more likely to depend on modern medicine, preventive health care, sanitary measures, etc. So if you look into when the farmers shift from traditional to intensive, there is a paradigm shift in terms of technologies, practices that farmers need to adapt. So it brings a greater challenge to the extension system or animal husbandry system to provide these new entities or new technologies or practices to the last mile. So these are some of the technologies when the farmers moves from traditional to intensive system, he need to shift it. So one is there is a slatted floor, then he may go for a boyer cross, and they may be forced to cultivate maybe hedge lucerne crop. Maybe then farmers need to go for identification system, then pellet feed, then maybe preparation of meals like hedge lucerne meals. Then the farmer may to shift to even you have to check the quality of water, pH, etc. Then need to adapt various machineries and vaccinations. So there is a paradigm shift of traditional farm when the farmers moves from traditional to intensive system, or a farmer when starts a new goat farm with an intensive approach, then the technologies that were in the traditional system will not be more ideal to the intensive systems. So technology developers feels if a technology is fine, then there is no hindrance in utility. That people who are generating technology at their research laboratories feel that. So my technology has proved in laboratory conditions that it's doing very fine. And we have tested in the laboratory animals. We have did the trials and we have checked the ADG, daily weight gain also, and it's doing fine. But and there is no hindrance in utility. But when it goes to the farmers, it is not always they are not adapting. For example, when you look into we have been promoting for yearly screening of mastitis in dairy cows with California mastitis test. So a lot of literatures are promoting you need to do a periodic screening of animals to control mastitis. But if you look into across India, even after doing an intensive training on screening of milk for mastitis with California mastitis test, the farmer's tendency to adopt CMD is very minimal still. Then we are emphasizing clean milk practices for the last 2 decades. But the practices from cleaning of hands during milking, permanent dip, after milking. It's not happening in the field. Then we have been promoting enrichment of paddy straws from 1960s onwards. Yes, sir, through urea, but it has not taken up by the farmers till today. Then silage, even though it's gaining a momentum recent past, but still it is adapted at a very minor scale on TMR, which is now emerging as a promoted as a complete ration. So we have a concrete evidence at the laboratory. We have a concrete evidence with even our own experiments. But when you push these technologies to the farmers, their adoption is very minimal. They are not taking these technologies. Then comes a question: why so? We also come across farmers are listening to our advices as suggested. The farmers meet us during maybe when they bring with animals, or they come for advisory services, or they may have questions when they ask it through WhatsApp or through meetings, training programs. They listen to our whatever we preach, whatever we teach them, but they are not putting those things into practice. So what is limiting this thing? What is limiting the farmers to uptake these technologies? When we advise the farmers, to go for a deworming in a periodical phase, when we advise the farmers to go for a vaccination with a schedule, but the farmer is reluctant, maybe adopting only partially or completely rejecting our packages. Why this is happening? When we engage in the technology transfer activities and adoption of goat farming practice that happens at the farmer levels are influenced by four dominant factors. So one is, I will come from the bottom. One, the technology, its character of the technology. So there are how the character of the technology exactly plays an important role in determining the adoption. For example, when you look into the example of California mastitis test, it is a prevention tool. It is used for diagnosis. So early diagnosis and a strategy tool. So in general, farmers have a less reluctance to go for a prevention approach. That's a psychological behavior of the farmer. Even in our own human houses, many of the people have a health coverage insurance at a minimal level. Many of the people do not adopt health cover insurance, even within the human. So we neglect those human health policies. That's a financial innovation that's being promoted by the financial institutions. But we tend to reject those things, prevention tools. Similarly, the farmers also, based on the type of the technologies, they have a tendency to reject. So that is because of the technology characters, attributes. That's the one thing. Second thing, the extension approaches. So there may be some lacunae in our extension approaches. Our understanding in terms of transferring the technologies, maybe in organizing a seminar, maybe in organizing a home visit, farm visit, or organizing a mela, or organizing maybe a field visits or method demonstration. So there may be some lacunae from our understanding, and we may be deploying a not exact tools that is needed to convince the farmers. So that extension approach also plays a role in determining the adoption of technologies. Then behavioral factors of farmers. So these are psychological factors of the farmers. So you may be in a training program, you may be preaching the vaccination, you may be teaching the vaccination schedule repeatedly. Maybe in the same farmer may be coming for your training 5 to 6 times, and you have taught the vaccination schedule to him, and he also has gained the knowledge, but because of his behavioral nature, he may not be doing that one. Then you comes the socio-demographic profile of the farmer. So here the gender determines adoption. Female farmers are less likely to adopt technologies on comparing to male. The farmers who have high contact intensity with veterinarians are more likely to adopt technologies. The farmers who are well professed, well familiar with mass media tools, social media tools, are more likely to adopt. So those are socio-demographic profile of the farmers. The young farmers, are more likely to adopt when comparing to the older farmers. So these four factors, socio-demographic profile of the farmers, behavioral factors of the farmers, that is within the farmer, then extension approach and nature of the technology, that's the attribute of the technology. These four domains influence the adoption of this technology. And again, when there is an external risk like climate risk, that also may moderate the adoption of technologies. So when you push a technology to the last mile through extension programs, we need to take into account of social factors of the farmers, their psychological factors of the farmers, what extension approach we are using, then what is the nature of the technology, the technology attributes. So these all needs to be considered when we push the technology. Taking into account when you put it in the right combination, only then there will be an adoption of goat farming practices, what we recommend. So, what extent these factors influence the adoption decision? One is social factors. The second is if you look into the behavioral and technology attributes, and the third factor is unknown factors. These three together put together influences the farmer's adoption decision, and each has its own level of contribution. Like social factors contribute 30% for the adoption decision. Behavioral factors, that's the farmer's psychological factors, and technology characters will contribute 50%, and unknown factors that still the research has not identified. All this together put together contribute the farmers taking an adoption decision. As an extension agency, as an extension functionary, when we disseminate technologies, these factors needs to be accounted. So these social factors, behavioral factors, psychological factors, and technology attributes, all this together only determines the adoption decision. So I have started with the definition, adoption process. So again, I just to recall here what is adoption process. So it's a mental process where an individual goes from understanding, getting an awareness idea about the technology and final confirmation. So the farmer's first stage is getting a knowledge about the technology. So that's it. There is awareness knowledge is there. Then how to do knowledge is there. Then principle knowledge is there. So there is a knowledge. Then takes place what is called as persuasion. Persuasion. So the persuasion is there. Then the persuasion is here. He gets a deeper understanding on about the attributes of the technology. For example, we are promoting salt lick. So first he gains a knowledge. A farmer gains a knowledge. First gains an awareness, then gains an insight about what that salt lick contains, then how to use those things. That's a knowledge. Then he checks. Persuasion is going. He compares with other similar product. Maybe he may compare with mineral mixture supplementing. So how it is advantages over the existing supplementing of mineral mixture in feed and comparing to the salt lick. How it is advantages. How it is compatible with existing is farming situations. Then how it is complex, whether it is a complex, easy to use or not. Then whether it is a trialable or not, whether the salt lick can be tried on a trial basis, then it can be upscaled in its form. Then observability, whether results are observable. So this undergoes, that's the persuasion stage. So this all happens in his mind. First gaining a knowledge, then he does a persuasion is there, then he takes a decision, either to adopt or reject. Then he goes for an implementation stage. Then he confirms whether we can continue or discontinue. So in the decision stage, he does some small level trial, and finally he goes for an implementation and confirm the adoption process. So knowledge. So what does the farmer is exposed to it? Existence of innovation. Maybe a PPR vaccine, maybe a blood vaccine here, and how it functions. So that is referred as knowledge. And as I said, there is awareness knowledge. There's an existence of lateral flow is that is a improved housing. That's a improved housing that is available. Farmer gets aware is the awareness knowledge. Then how it is useful to him? Maybe in terms of that is useful by reducing the drudgery involved in rearing of goats. Maybe easy management. So that is how. the information on use of lateral flow. Then principal knowledge, functioning of principles of lateral flow. It includes establishment of lateral flow, construction, all those things. So there are three kinds of knowledge is there. One is awareness knowledge, how-to knowledge, and principal knowledge. So when he gets these things, then the farmers goes to the persuasive stage. So forms a favorable, unfavorable attitude towards the innovations. Actively seeks information about it. So in this stage, persuasion stage, he tries to compare deep litter system in case of started flow. How deep litter system? This is started flow system. How it is advantages in terms of management, in terms of treasury reduction, or in terms of weight gain, or in terms of maybe in terms of control of diseases. So he tries to compare the deep litter system with started flow. Also, he tries to compare in terms of economics also. How much we can extra earn here when you go for deep litter system. How much time it will take to take the capital invested in the deep the started flow system. So that is a persuasive stage. Then he comes the decision stage, then implementation stage and confirmation stage. So this is the stage. It's a mental process. An individual goes from knowledge to final confirmation stage. So that is the stage that will form up. So what are the behavioral factors? So I earlier said in my slide that social factor is one of the influencer, then behavioral factor is another, then technology factor is another. So the behavioral factors here comprises the cognitive factors of farmer, is motivational factors, is attitude. So attitude is nothing but the feelings, negative and positive feeling associated with a particular technology, maybe a certain flow. Then personality factors, whether he is a risk averse guy, risk taking guy or not. Then a social factors. Here, social factors means here the peer group pressure, like the farmer who is residing at his village has already adopted the certain flow system. Then he may be influencing the next farmer to adapt a similar practice. So that is social factor, social influences. The fellow farmers who have adapted technology may be influencing those things. Then organizational level factors. So these are the psychological factors that is present within the farmer that influence the decision making process, either to adopt a technology or reject a technology. So this also plays a determinant role in adoption of technology. So we may be promoting technologies, but the farmers' behavioral factors will be limiting the adoption. Just like we got the animal behavioral factors, we got the human behavioral factors that is limiting adoption of technologies. So these are socio-demographic factors. So if you look into here, the age of a farmers, education, gender, as I earlier said, the female are more likely to be less adopter of technologies. The studies at Tamil Nadu clearly indicates the farms which are maintained by women, particularly dairy farms, are less likely to adopt further innovations. So gender plays a determinant role. Then how contact with extensive system? The farmer who are more frequently contact with the field veterinarians or contact with the maybe the research institutes, so more likely to adopt the technologies. So we have our own studies when we studied the farmers who are assessing the Tanavas extensive system and who are not assessing the Tanavas extensive system, then the farmers who are assessing extensive system have a remarkably higher level of adoption, higher level of output from the farming activities. Similarly, their connectivity with social network, how they are connected with the fellow farmers, how they are digitally connected, how they are physically connected, all this matter. Then their knowledge on farming. So these are social factors that determine that this is within the farmer that determines. So the two factors, one is behavioral factor, that is the psychological factors, and social factors, that is all these two are within the farmer or in the surrounding of the farmer that influence the adoption decision. Then we said the characters of innovation, that is the technologies or practices. So when you present a technology to farmer, maybe a slotted flow or a TM or SN, then he try to evaluate that particular new innovation, that new practice with the existing one in terms of relative advantage. Is it better than what I am doing already? Is it compatible to my farming system? To the labor available at my households? labor force that is available to my households, or the rearing system which I have, whether it's compatible, whether is it easy to understand and easy to use, then whether it can be tried on a small scale before going to a large scale within the farm, and whether these results are observable. So when I try a new technology, whether the results are grossly observable. For example, when we supplement mineral mixture to the dairy animals, the results are observable as in the form of increase in SNFR. So that is observability. When we supplement the fodder, leguminous fodder like hedge looser to the cattle feeding, then we see in terms of reduction in usage of concentrate feed or and also increase in milk yield. So that is observable of the technology implications on animal as an output. So the farmer tries to evaluate all these things. So the technologies which are trialable in small scale are more likely to examine. So we can see it in a consumer market. So when a company introduces new shampoo, they never present it into a half-liter presentation or 1 liter presentation. They first introduce it in a sachet pack. So the consumers can trial it, and if they convince, then they will come for a larger scale purchase. That's a half-liter presentation or 1 liter presentation. So the trialability of these things are technology also needed to be there. Some of the technology like DMR, which needs a heavy investment, cannot be tried immediately. So trialability cannot be there. So that needs lot of investment. So the technologies that are complex and needs heavy investment, which cannot be trialable in smaller forms, are comparatively will go in a lesser speed on adoption rate. So complexity here again refers to whether it is understandable to farmer and easy to use. So farmers try to evaluate these technologies. Whatever he is doing now and what the technology you have presented to them and evaluates in these 5 forms. That is what Rogers says in diffusion of innovations. So farmers evaluate these technologies, and if he is compatible with these 5 attributes, then only he goes for the adoption stage. So what is the relative advantage? Degree to which an innovation perceived as being better than the idea it supersedes. So we got a deep litter system, and you are asking a farmer to move to a starter flow system. So how it is advantageous in terms of maybe in terms of ADG, average daily gain in animals, or if you are promoting a new breed in replacing the indigenous breed. So how it is going to be, how many kids it's likely to give on comparing to the indigenous variety. So how the ADG is likely to be there. So the farmers try to look into the relative advantage. Then he looks into this compatibility. So compatibility is the degree to which an innovation pursuit is consistent with the existing values, his past experience, and needs of the potential adapters. So here I wish to add one more point is that how it is compatible with these farming situations. For example, if you introduce improved poultry birds in backyard system, so there is a lot of compatibility issues are coming. The improved birds may not be in a position to make itself secure against predator attack on comparing to the indigenous. The improved varieties were more prone for the predator attacks on comparing to the indigenous breeds. On the improved poultry breeds need more feed quantity on comparing to the indigenous birds, and they may be scavenging more time. So when we introduced improved birds in our own district, the farmer used to say that your improved breeds are grazing up to 8 o'clock in the night. So and those birds are needs extra prevention, extra housing arrangements on comparing to the indigenous breeds. They are prone for attacks from dogs, predators like mongoose or other predator birds. So the compatibility also matters. So when you push a technology into a system, in a farming system, whether that technology is compatible to the existing situation, that to the existing values, past experience of the farmers and the farming situation. That's the compatibility. Then comes the complexity. So some of the innovations which we promote sometimes farmers feel is difficult to use, particularly enrichment of paddy straw with urea. So that the farmer feels it as a complex phenomenon, and there is a hesitation from the farmer side to adopt this kind of technologies. Then comes the trialability. So as I explained earlier, the trialability is more on how much he can use it in a smaller version, experiment at his household, and then he can upscale to his requirement. That's the trialability. Then the observability. So observability here refers to the results. So when you implement a technology or a practice, to what extent the technology is able to generate an output that is grossly appreciable by the farmers. So in case of prevention technologies like vaccine, the farmer is unable to see the results grossly. But when you supplement concentrate feed, there is incremental milk production is immediately seen maybe within maybe 3 to 4 days. So there is observability is there when you go for a concentrate feeding. But when you go for FMD vaccination, the results are not immediately visible to him. That is not grossly visible to him, just like the feed. When you feed the leguminous water, then there is an increase in milk production. That's grossly visible. But in case of using a CMD or then adopting a primitive strategies to control mastitis, subclinical mastitis, it's not grossly visible. So the observability is a problem here. Then predictability. So degree of certainty of receiving expected benefits. Like if a farmer adopt an innovation, to what extent he can generate an additional income. That is the predictability of the technology. So farmers evaluate a given technology which you present to the farmers. These 6 characters. These are referred as attributes of the technologies. So whatever you do, whatever we do at a research station may have a gained and incremental benefit at research stations, but when it goes to the field, the farmers try to evaluate these technologies on these 6 characters. So in general, if you look into preventive innovations, so an idea adopted by an individual at one point of time in order to lower the probability of some future unwanted event that may occur. So here future unwanted event is nothing but incidence of FMD. So if a farmer adopts FMD vaccine, then he can prevent unwanted event, that is incidence of FMD. So that are referred as preventive innovation. This preventive innovation in general has a slow rate of adoption because of perceiving its relative adaptability and observability. So these are the attributes of the innovations that limit the adoption of innovation. So here I just try to share an experience what we had at our Krishi Vigyan Kendra, Kallagurichi, when we promoted a indigenous veterinary medicine based acaricide technology as an alternative to synthetic technology, synthetic acaricide. So this polyherbal technology is to control tick infestation, and the steps involved here is the farmer have to prepare an aqueous succession of neem and nochi. So the farmer have to collect neem leaves and nochi leaves and prepare an aqueous succession that will be stored as a mother solutions. From this mother solution, the farmer have to prepare a working solutions. So the neem extraction, nochi extractions are stored in a different containers, and from those mother solution, you have to prepare an working solution, 300 ml neem, 100 ml nochi you have to take and mix it in 3.6 liters of water and spray it on this animal twice for 3 days. 3 days. This was a technology we were promoting to the farmers, and this is an insight into the technology. So this technology was given by National Innovation Foundation that is located at Ahmedabad, Gujarat. And we evaluated this technology in the field also, and it gave a good result, and we promoted to the farmers. So it involves steps of extracting, aqueous extraction through boiling of neem leaves with water and similarly nochi leaves, then storing it, and from the storage mother solution, we need to use the working solutions in by mixing in 3.6 liters of water with 300 ml of neem extract and 100 ml of neem extract, and you have to apply this solution twice per day for 3 days to control the tick infestations. Now the question comes here. So we got now 2 technologies. I am trying to replace a technology that is very popular, lectamethrin, that is used by the farmers with an alternative technology that is a combination of nochi and neem aqueous extract. I'm trying to replace. So when I try to replace this technology, the farmers try to evaluate these two technologies based on the 5 characters I have already discussed to you. So the 5 characters: relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, reliability, and observability, and predictability. So these are the 6 characters on which the polyherbal is compared with synthetic acaricide that is already used by the farmers. So he compares how it is relatively advantage. So the relative advantage, if you look at it, synthetic acaricide is comparatively costly and polyherbal acaricide is cheaper because both the herbs are available near to his location. He can prepare this aqueous extraction. He has applied it almost with zero cost. So in terms of cost, that polyherbal is cheaper. And in terms of efficacy, reduction of tick load, we all know when you use deltamethrin, within 24 to 36 hours, the tick load is almost to zero. But here when polyherbal you come, when you use polyherbal, the farmer uses for polyherbal, then it takes 70 to 90 hours for the tick load to reduce. So the reduction of tick load is comparatively slow. Then the recurrence of tick infestation. In case of deltamethrin usage, there is a recurrence within 15 to 13 days. But if you use polyherbal, if the farmers use polyherbal, then slower recurrence of tick infestation. And it is not environmental friendly, synthetic acaricide and environment friendly. Like this, the farmer compares all the technologies, whatever we promote in terms of relative advantage. And if you look into the complexity of this, using of acaricide, synthetic acaricide, deltamethrin, not much of complexity involved using the acaricide. Because the farmer can purchase it as per the recommendation of the local, he can mix it in the water, apply it on the animal. With one application, the animal gets completely eradicated. But in this case, there is a lot of complexity involved. The farmer need to extract mother solution, then he have to prepare the working solution, and here you have to go for twice daily for 3 days. So the degree of complexity is here higher. So like this, farmer evaluate all the technologies before adopting it. He compares the relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, reliability, observability, and predictability. After evaluating all this technology as a mental process or on a trial basis, then only he goes for a large scale adoption. These behavioral and the technological factors responsible for 50% of the decision making process. Remaining 30% of the decision making process is account to the social factors. So 80% of the variance in adoption is explained by these behavioral as well as technology factor as well as social factors. So when we transfer the technologies, so we need to take all this account, attributes of the technology, behavioral factors, then the social factors on take into account, then we need to put right extension approaches to disseminate the technologies. When you put these things into only, then there will be a chances of adoption. So these may be the reasons, even though farmers gained a knowledge in eastern regions of India, but they are comparatively less adapters. But in southern states, even though the knowledge level is less, they are having a better adoption rate. So whatever they gain, they are putting into the practice. But in case of eastern state, whatever they gain, they have not put into the practice. So these are the factors. Biology, the behavioral factors of the farmers, technological factors of the farmers, and also the extension approaches may be the reasons that needs to be addressed. Then next, coming to the next part, how a technology goes within a society. So when we started to push a technology, new technology, like example, if you take, maybe we are promoting a new technology in particular pocket where the farmers already have zero knowledge or zero adoption rate. So we are organizing a training for a particular technology dissemination and trying to push this technology. Then the technology adoption takes an S-shape over a period of time. The farmers who adopt immediately within a short frame of time, after our dissemination work, after our extension work, are referred as innovators. They are there. Even we need not to be active in our extension program. These kind of farmers will be in contact with us and trying to seek new information, and they will try to implement immediately. So those farmers are referred as innovators. So they are always a technology friendly farmers who are willing to take technology whenever it is released. So they are referred as innovators. Then comes a category of farmers, early adopters. So the early adopters are farmers when the technology is established without any ambiguity on its performance. It's showing good results. It is showing the expected results, and it has a potential implication on the household income. Then the early adopters adopt these technologies. So these early adopters are referred as also key communicators or opinion leaders. They are referred as opinion leaders. Then we got another segment that is adapting the technologies at the last phase. They are laggards. These farmers are mostly they are traditional farmers. There are many psychological drive will be there, limiting them to adapt the technologies. Behavioral factors will be very strong here in the laggard's case. So these farmers are late majority, all referred as skeptical natures. They are referred as. So these are different sets of farmers based on their the adoption of technologies. What extent, relative of what time they adopt it. So this is again the explanation. So within a community, farming community, the farmers can be classified into 5 categories. So some are referred as innovators, that's why they are 2.5, and early adopters, they are 13.5. The yearly majority is referred as 34.5, 34%, late majority is 34, and so this is also 100%. So why this slide is here is that when you push a technology, we cannot reach all the farmers within a village. We cannot communicate to every farmers that this new technology is available, you can adopt it. And that is not possible with the available resources also. So this adoption segment gives a clue. If we engage what kind of farmer, he will act as a spokesperson to us and disseminate to other farmers. Like in this case, as I earlier said, earlier adopters also referred as opinion leaders. So after the innovators, these early adopters adopt the technology. When you catch hold of these early adopters and identify them from the society, and if you communicate technologies to these early adopters, then these early adopters will act as a messengers to the rest of the society, and they will communicate the technologies. These early majority and late majority and laggards at no time will be in touch with us. They will be always away from us. They will not be in contact with the formal extension system. These innovators and early adopters will always will be willing to be get in touch, and they will having a frequent visit to our office, veterinary dispensaries, or our extension centers. These two people will be having a high frequency of contact, and they will gain the knowledge here, and they will communicate this knowledge to these segments. These early majority or late majority and laggards most does not have much trust on the extension system, which is outside his social system. These three groups have more faith on these early adopters or opinion leaders. So from these opinion leaders, these early majority, late majority, and laggards take the message. So during a dissemination of technology or during a popularization of any technologies, we need to identify who are the early adopters, who also referred as opinion leaders within the community. So there may be a opinion leader for goat farming activity. There may be an opinion leader for a dairy farming activity. We need to catch hold of those farmers and sensitize him, and he will act as your spokesperson and disseminate the technologies. That is what This adoption pattern gives a message to all of us. Again, some more emphasis here. For innovators, they are techno enthusiasts. So they will be very favorable to technology and they will say immediately adopt the technologies. But these guys will keep the technology with themselves and try to capitalize the market opportunities. So they will not play a role in technology disseminations. But these early adopters are visionaries. So they have a social feeling. They have opinion leaders. So we have to identify who are the visionaries within a community or within a village. And we have to take their help in dissemination of technologies. So coming to the things. So we here as a zero grazing system, which emphasizes on more of intensive system. And when you go into the intensive system, and if you look into the farmers who are likely to be our clients for the intensive system of rearing, the past extension research says there are 5 categories of people who are likely to shift towards intensive system. One is traditional farmers moving from traditional to intensive systems. So that's one category of farmers. Then there is another category of farmers, re-entrant farmers. Like my previous generation has skipped the farming, or I have skipped the farming for last 1 or 2 decades, and now I am entering into the farming. So there is a re-entrant farmers. Then we got a new class of farmers who are from IT sectors who want to invest and experiment in agriculture, allied sectors like goat farming. So they come from IT sectors, service industry, and other non-farming sector. So if you look into the farmers who are now doing intensive farming systems in Tamil Nadu, we see most of these are from their guys from who worked in maybe in some companies, IT industries, or from in the manufacturing industries or service sectors. They got some kind of a savings and they are trying to invest in the farming and they want to come to the rural, re-migrate to the rural. So that's a new class of farmers. Then you got another class of clients, farmer producer companies. Now, as you all know, the NLM is promoting under its common, farmer producer companies are promoted under its common. So many of the activities are for farmer producer companies are there, like meat processing industry, milk processing industries, given when farmer producer companies want to establish these entities, they are promoting farmer producer companies. There are farmer producer companies which are engaged in producing breeding stock also. So that's a new kind of a clients. Then other actors on the value chain also come into the scene. So in the recent past, our client's profile is also changing. So the farmers who are new class of farmers are re-entered farmers are coming with already searching the Google, reading literatures, discussing, visiting many farms, and gaining some kind of a knowledge and trying to get an advice from additional advice from us. So the re-entered farmers and new class of farmers are completely highly comparatively enriched farmers in terms of knowledge and they are visiting many farms, trying to gather other farms' experience, and after that they are making a visit to us and try to enrich their knowledge with our own experiences. And we got the farmer producer companies where we have to handle maybe 200 to 300 farmers who want to establish maybe started for goat units. So the client system is also changing to us. So initially we are handling traditional farmers. Now we got a different diverse set of clients. We are who are comparatively more enriched with knowledge and more equipped with the technologies. More they are efficient in handling social media, more efficient in using such tools such as Google or other literature searches. So things are changing dynamically. Diverse requirements in terms of knowledge. So we need to equip to meet diverse set of clients. So there was even clients are coming how to aggregate the farmers output in the goat farms. Like there are some aggregators. They want try more systematically aggregation of goat animals for slaughters. So they are also trying to seek advice from me. That our knowledge on the value chain also becomes necessary. So not only production, from production to marketing, not only marketing, marketing to dining table, how things are being presented. So all these things, as a technocrat, we need to equip. So we need a diverse knowledge. We need to handle diverse people, and we also need to use diverse approaches in extensive tools. So we need to be equipped in maybe handling of social media tools also. So the technocrats also needs to equip their skills. So when we did a small study in Tamil Nadu, covering a northwestern region of Tamil Nadu, and try to understand what are the traits of the farmer who are doing goat rearing and zero grazing system. And we compared the farmers doing zero grazing system with the traditional farmers. And when you look into the community of the farmers who are doing a zero grazing, there is a meager percentage of participation of unprivileged sections, particularly scheduled castes and tribals, and majority of them are from the forward communities, backward and forward communities. And if you look into the family education status also, they have a high family education status, while the traditional farmers are comparatively have a medium level status. And if you look into the land holding of the farmers who are undertaking zero grazing system, has large land holding, but traditional system are more with landless and marginal farmers. And if you look into their family income also, they are on the highest side with annual income of 3.5 lakh and comparing to the farmers with 1.5 lakh. Then coming to the goat farming income also, they are on the higher side. And if you look into the farmers, how many farmers had previous exposure to traditional farming experience? In this case, nearly 7% of the farmers did not have any experience regarding to the goat farming. So they are in new entrant into the goat farming, that too in zero grazing system. So as I said earlier, our clients are sometimes comes from non-farming families who are coming from non-farm sectors. Then when you come into the how they are contacting, whether they are attending training, half of the farmers who took intensified had training somewhere, maybe some institution they had a training. But in this case, traditional farmers who have not had any training. We also asked whether the intensified farmer willing to expand their flock size. Then majority have said they are willing to maintain the same flock size. The both the case they are willing to maintain it. But the herd size, the flock size is comparatively higher here. And if you look into the mass media exposure, their mass media exposure includes exposure to our social media tools, YouTube tools. So they have a high exposure to these tools and comparing to the traditional farmers. And extension agency contact, that's a contact with the veterinarian. So they have a high contact with the veterinarian. But here, the traditional farmer has a low high contact with the inspectors, livestock inspectors. And they have a higher favorable attitude. Four-fifths of the farmers have a higher favorable attitude towards the farming. That have a positive feeling that goat industry is emerging. That's the feeling they have. They have good returns can be taken in a goat system. But when you come to here comparatively less farmers have a positive feeling with the goat rearing. So this is a finding of Ramkumar at our institution. That so when you look into the farmers who are undertaking zero grazing, it's an intensified system. They are completely different from the traditional farmers. Their social character is different. Their behavioral character is different. Their contact with the extension different system is different. Their technology adoption is also different. So we can say here that the previous slides where I was trying to emphasize the intensified farmers are new type of clients to us. New type of clients to us. So these all needs to be accounted. So the farmers who are coming and saying that I am going to start a zero grazing or intensified system is already have some gain some knowledge through some process. So he is coming here to extra knowledge, which he is unable to secure from other resources. So in this case, we need to equip from farming to how the meat is presented at the dining table. That's where they say farm to fork or plow to plate. So this is where we need to understand and equip ourselves as an extension agent to address those people. So this is a call center. We had an analysis at our own department. So it was analyzed from 2013 to 2018. So there were 1,215 calls that were dialed to the call center for farmers to answer a query. So when we checked and analyzed those queries, we found that 77% of the questions were on diseases. So when a call center is presented, call center number is presented to the farmers, and when the farmers dial to the call centers to advisory services, and out of those advisory services, for the last 5 years, the 2013 to 2018, we had 1,215 questions. So when you analyze those questions, most of these questions, around 77% of the questions were on diseases. And the next most short questions were, if you look into it, on enterprise, how to start the enterprise. There is 6.6. Then the feeding is there. So in the call center, for the queries when we analyzed, the diseases was the most information sought. So the farmers might have had some incidents in their farms and they want to address it, try to address it with some kind of first aid. So they might have dialed to the call center, and so that might be the case. So when we analyze the advisory services of TANUVAS, so which runs a veterinary university training and research centers. So the farmers visit those centers for advisory services or training. When we analyze those queries, husbandry questions were predominant. So here what I try to emphasize is that both the husbandry as well as disease, we need to equip. So as a practicing vet, if we stop with clinical cases, then that is not allowed. We need to equip ourselves with husbandry. Maybe what is the requirement of slaughter flow? What type of wood can be used? What is the space requirement? What is the cost per square feet? So this kind of questions also come. So when farmers are in an emergency type situation, then there is more questions on diseases. When farmer is very in a normal situations and he tries to explore the husband related questions. So we need to equip ourselves also with husbandry questions, FAQs also. So here it involves feeding practices, establishment of shed, maybe establishment of TMR plant or establishment of fodder units. So all these things are there. So we need to equip with both husbandry as well as diseases and also other activities that happens in the value chain. Processing, packing, all those things we need to equip. So I request you to recall from our first slide. So the first slide I try to emphasize that in the context of climate change, when the temperature is likely to rise 2 degrees Celsius or 4 degrees Celsius, what are the scenario that comes out? So what are the scenario that comes out? The goat has less number of stressful days per annum in these both situations on comparing to cattle, poultry, pig or sheep. So this clearly indicates that future, at least in tropical countries, goat is likely to play a predominant role. The goat research institute located at Mugdom also has emphasized in annual review reports that goat is likely to be a future livestock for both meat as well as also dairy. So there is a lot of investment research is going on into the system. So we need to ourselves equip with farmer friendly technologies, with strong exception system, with emphasis on capacity building activities, training programs, field demonstrations, participation of the farmers, and doing a technology transfer activities, enhancing the farmers' activities, and try to build a climate resilient system around goat so that even though minor stress is there, it is able to produce the optimum or best possible results. So we need to equip ourselves with in terms of climate change context also. Also emerging meat demand for emerging meat, particularly demand of chawan as well as mutton, particularly in the East Asian countries, as well as in the European countries. Particularly in European countries, this goat is associated with some kind of a natural farming, and there is a niche market is evolving around goat meat. So it may has a potential to replace existing poultry meat and other meats with chawan or mutton. So in this context, we need to ourselves reorient our thought process, our activities, our technology transfer programs towards goats. So I think you all may agree with me that goat is an art species in tropical regions in context of climate range. So what are the degree, 2 degree or 4 degree rise that is forecasted by International Panel on Climate Change. So whatever those rise is there, goat is more likely to withstand those stress with minimal interventions. So at the same time, there is a wide variation exists in terms of knowledge across the regions of India, across the practices, and also there is a wide variation exists in adoption of goat farming practices. So the adoption of goat farming practices, many of us say the farmer is not listening to me. So even after listening and shaking his head, he is not adopting technologies. This may be attributed to the social factors, psychological factors of the farmers, and technological factors that determine the adoption decision of the farmers. So when we try to do a extension program, we need to take care of all these things, how we are addressing these categories. Then we need to understand that the farmers, new class of farmers, goat farmers, they are different from our traditional farmers. They have a different social traits, and their demand is different on comparing to the existing traditional farmers. And leads suggest that health as well as husbandry practices needs to be focused during our conservancy services. So these all needs to be addressed across the value chain of the goat from production to the dining table. So taking into account all these factors, when we refine our extension approaches and our own thought process and our own approaches at our working place, then there is a more chances the farmers are likely to adapt, enhance their knowledge about farming, adapt technologies, and build a resilient, climate resilient production system. Thank you.